Ford just announced that 100,000 asylum seekers are going to be granted work permits in Ontario. This is at the same time that a record 2 million Canadians are using food banks. Our GDP per capita of 50 countries recently measured ranked dead last, 50th, due to the Liberals' insane ESG and so-called environmental policies that have been implemented over the past decade. We have more Ontarians and Canadians struggling with food security than ever before. You walk around our streets, this country has absolutely transformed in the last decade or so. And at the same time, our so-called conservative premiers are granting work permits to 100,000 migrants. First of all, Doug Ford dropped the pretense. You're a Liberal. For those who didn't see him, he was complimenting and glazing Mark Carney. It made me want to throw up about how modest he is and how he's worked at the WF and Davos and Brookfield, this trillion-dollar company, and he's so modest. Doug Ford, take your knee pads off, for God's sake. You're the premier, the conservative premier of Ontario. It made me want to throw up. It really made me want to throw up. And if conservatives in Canada are granting work permits to 100,000 migrants at the same time as we are going through unprecedented economic times in Canada due to the policies of our Liberal government, we are truly lost. Doug Ford plays himself off as some sort of a populist, some sort of a guy who's looking out for the little people. Anybody who lives in Canada, anybody who lives in Ontario knows so many people who are struggling to find work right now. Youth unemployment is over 17%. That is unprecedented in Canada. And our GDP per capita has been tumbling. Canadians are struggling to survive. Everybody knows we're going through a housing crisis due to the immigration policies that have been implemented over the past decade. We have a housing crisis. We have a cost of living crisis. Our economy is in tatters. Of the G7 countries, of the Western countries, Canada's economy is the absolute worst. Yet our government continues to grant work permits to middle and low skilled workers. Anybody with a basic understanding of economics knows that you flood supply, you flood the economy with only 16% of immigrants are so-called high skilled workers. 5 out of 6 of them are middle and low skilled workers. You flood the zone with supply. Demand is going to go down. It's basic economics. Doug Ford plays himself off as a businessman. Obviously, he did not do very well in basic economics classes. It's truly nauseating that if in Canada, these are our so-called conservative premiers, we are screwed. There is nobody who's representing the majority of Canadian people, because there's no issue that's as agreed upon as this one. 75% of Canadians say enough immigration, but our government refuses to listen to us. And that's when you realize that this democracy that we live in Canada, it's not really much of a democracy if you have 3 out of 4 Canadians agreeing on an issue, yet the government continues to allow hundreds of thousands of immigrants in. Then how exactly do we live in a democratic society? If democratic society means that the voice of the people is heard, if you have an issue where 3/4 of the people agree, yet your politicians continue to allow millions of people to come in, it doesn't sound very democratic to me. It's truly pathetic what's going on in Canada. And we really need to do something soon, because it's becoming more and more clear every day that unless there are rallies, unless people really start to make their voices heard, nothing's going to change. Absolutely nothing's going to change. If you're interested in supporting, hit the link in my bio. I'm going to be trying to set some rallies up in Ottawa over the coming weeks. Make as much noise as possible to MPs on their social media feeds, because what's going on right now is disgusting, and it's time that Canadians stand up and say enough is enough.